Hi everyone, and welcome back to Planting for Wildlife. Spring has definitely taken hold now, and I'm seeing some really nice growth in all of the beds that I spent all winter planting up. It's really nice to see. Just this morning, I saw some bees on the Pulmonaria, it's a variety called Cotton Cool, and on the Muscari, and both of those plants weren't in the garden last year. This week, I'm looking at my top 3 books for planting inspiration. I love reading books about gardening, and in particular, books about naturalistic planting, which is wildlife friendly. There's something really exciting about seeing a new plant or a new tree or perhaps a planting combination in a book and thinking, not only does that look amazing, but I can also have a go at recreating that in my own garden. There's so many true experts out there and they create a lot of really nice content, so I wanted to share my top 3 with you that are going to have the biggest impact on how I go about planting this garden. The first book is called Naturalistic Planting Design, and it's written by Nigel Dunnett. This book out of the 3 is having by far the biggest impact on how I approach this garden and all of the planting that goes in it. It's become a bit of a Bible, and it's pretty much always out in my house somewhere with some post-it notes in it, constantly thumbing through this book. Nigel Dunnett is a professor of planting design and urban horticulture at the University of Sheffield, UK. He's a pioneering designer and plantsman, and probably most famous for bringing naturalistic wildlife planting into public spaces. His most famous projects include the London 2012 Olympics and the Olympic Park, the Barbican London, and also the Tower of London Superbloom. Even before you've got into the technical side of this book, and it is quite a technical book at times, it's just full of beautiful photos of some really nice naturalistic planting schemes. I'll give you some examples here. On this page you have Calamagrostis Carl Forster at the back here, combined with Verbena bonariensis. Really nice planting scheme, obviously bee and butterfly friendly with the Verbena, planted in a huge space here, and a public space as well. Here you have a combination of ferns and Pulmonaria. This one's called Cotton Cool, and actually one that I've got in this garden that the bees were on earlier. Just one more, and I really love this one. It's Salvia with Euphorbia, which I think contrasts really nicely. Some alliums in there too, and then these red dots from the poppies, which I think just really accentuate nicely, and all planted under multi-stem birch trees. It's really stunning. The thing this book really opened my eyes up to was commingled planting as opposed to block planting to give more of a naturalistic feel to the garden. Because a lot of his planting designs are designed for public spaces as well, they're all low maintenance, his motto being low input, high impact. Nigel Dunnett's approach really is more like a science, and one of the concepts he speaks to, he names the centre of gravity approach, which compares the positioning of plants to how the universe forms. Now, bear with me a little bit, because I know that might sound a bit complex and crazy, but it's actually quite a simple thing. So if you think of the sun as a large plant, let's say a multi-stem shrub or a large grass, then the satellite plants would be like the planets and coalesce around the sun. So the satellite plants might be something like a Euphorbia or a Salvia, and then coalescing around the satellite plants would be the moons, which would be even smaller plants. So think something like a Nautia macedonica or a poppy. I'll stop there before I further butcher Nigel Dunnett's concept, but hopefully you get the idea. The next book I wanted to look at is called Wild, with words by Noel Kingsbury and photography by Claire Takacs. Claire Takacs is a really amazing floral and garden photographer, so if you haven't seen her work, definitely check that out. They say don't judge a book by this cover, but I just love the cover of this book, and I was definitely sold as soon as I saw it. It's quite a nice thick book, as you can see, and it's full, as the Dunnett book is, with beautiful photography, probably a bit more stylistic on the photography of this book, if I'm honest with you. It's kind of like the perfect coffee table book, if ever there was one. I've actually taken this book on 2 different holidays with me, and as you can see, it's not the smallest one to pack into your hand luggage. The format of the book is a series of case studies on gardens from around the world, both public and private. They all have a naturalistic vibe to them, and I'll just show you some of my favourite ones. First one is the Highline project, or Highline Garden in Manhattan, New York. I was lucky enough to visit this garden a number of years ago now. It's really stunning, especially nestled in the heart of Manhattan like it is. It's designed by Pete Oldorf, and as you can see, the photography here is stunning. Look at this autumn colour with the staghorns. If I ever go back to New York, I definitely need to go back here. Next is the Greater Green Garden in Sheffield, which was Nigel Dunnett's project, closely associated with the University of Sheffield. The book gives some really nice information on the method behind the gardening as well, even down to the depth of the substrate and how many times you need to cut the garden back. Really nice reading, and obviously full with beautiful photography. The last one is called Stone Hill in Australia, on the other side of the planet. It's a beautiful example of prairie planting. The photography is stunning. Look at this lighting coming through here. And there's two key plants from this garden that I'm looking to use in this garden as well. One being Stipa gigantea down here, and one being Russian sage, which they've planted all the way through here. Really stunning garden. One really nice thing about this book as well is that it has a directory of plants at the back, which lists out the key plants used in all of the gardens. So I probably spent as much time thumbing through this part as the pictures. The last one on my list is called The Essential Tree Selection Guide, and it's written by Henrik Schumann and Arit Anderson. Some of you might know Arit Anderson. She appears quite a lot on the UK garden show, Gardener's World. As you can see, this book is quite a chunky one, and not one I'm going to be taking in my hand luggage anytime soon. But it's a really great book, and it's also written in association with the Royal Botanic Gardens of Kew in the UK, who are obviously experts in all things trees and plants. There's a huge amount of information in this book, and when I first read it, I think it just made me realise how much I didn't know about trees. There's so many different pieces to it. For example, looking at how trees regulate wind, looking at how trees regulate temperature, which trees are more tolerant to drought or heat, which trees are good for reducing air pollution, also the benefit that trees provide to people. So there's so much information in here, and I really did learn a lot from reading it. I think it does a really good job of taking that information and distilling it down as much as you possibly can. Once you've read all the information in this section of the book though, all of the rest of the book is dedicated to an A to Z tree directory. So especially if you're looking to select or buy a new tree, this is a really great reference to have. It's got a huge amount of pages dedicated to different types of cherry tree, different types of amelanchier, different types of birch, different types of crabapple. It's a really nice reference, and something I've definitely used in selecting the trees for this garden. I hope you've enjoyed this little book review. I just wanted to highlight that I'm not receiving anything from anyone for reviewing these books. I'm not trying to sell them to you in any way. I've just taken a lot of inspiration from them and have enjoyed reading them myself, so I wanted to share that with you. Just to summarise the three books, if you want more of a technical guide, almost a scientific approach to commingled planting, this Naturalistic Planting Design book by Nigel Dunnett is definitely the one. If you just want a beautiful coffee table book full of lovely photography that can sit and brighten up any room, this one's for you, Wild by Claire Takacs and Noel Kingsbury. And if you want to do a bit of a deep dive on trees, or you're selecting a tree for your own garden, definitely take a look at this one as well. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. Until next time, enjoy the wildlife in your garden.